Let's talk about the housing market. The case for chat here being GST rate cuts likely coming through, which is an Economic Times report, ET9 exclusive actually, that my colleague Nayantara Rai broke yesterday. Likely GST rate cut is to boost the housing market. Now we are joined by Varun Gupta, whole-time director, Ashiana Housing, to discuss this a bit more in detail. Varun, is that your sense? Do you think that the rate cut is something that the sector needs at present?
Yes, the GST rate optically is very high at 12%, and any reduction in that, where I heard from your story that it might come down to 8%, would definitely help the market as on today and give a booster dose to under construction properties.
Okay, Anuj, wanted to get your sense as well. What is the current GST rate across categories? And how do you think the new rates would change the environment? Would it make a material difference on ground?
Yeah, I'll divide it into two parts. The first is a recent clarification that came on the GST, which says that GST is applicable even on completed buildings unless they have a completion certificate, which wasn't really defined earlier. It says that GST was not applicable on completed buildings, but it did not define that the building had to have a completion certificate for the GST not to be applicable. So I think one is that clarity has come in, that what does completion of a building mean? Today it means is that it needs to have a completion certificate. Otherwise, if the developer sells, even if it is fully completed but does not have a completion certificate, it attracts a GST. The second is this proposition which the finance minister and the prime minister hopefully will look at tomorrow, is the reduction in the GST. There are two propositions, as we understand, that they're going to be tabling with the committee on the GST. First is, as Mr. Gupta said, is that reducing it from 12 to 8%. And the second interesting proposition is that it will be reduced to 5%, but there will be no input credit that the developer can claim. So 12 to 8% the government had already done on the affordable housing. Now they're saying for the rest of the housing also, we may look to bring it down from 12 to 8%. But in that case, you do have input credit that the developer can claim. The second alternative, which is the interesting alternative, is to say is that the developer cannot claim any input credit, but we will make it flat at 5%. Both these are attractive propositions. I mean, clearly in my personal view, if you do just 5% without input credit, just makes it a lot more easier, simpler. The developers don't have to, keep the credit input into account. But more importantly, at this moment in time, we really require help from the government on GST rates getting reduced, because otherwise the sale velocity has become hugely slow after demonetization, RERA, GST, and now recently the NBFC crisis. So this will bring in a huge amount of positivity into the market.
Right. Varun, that very point if we just address that point on what Anuj highlighted with regards to the input tax credit, how is this going to work, and do you think that it'll make a material impact in terms of demand?
So, to me, the real estate market is already improving. The demand side is improving. Any GST reduction would help. I differ with Anuj's opinion that I think a rate reduction to 8% with input tax credit would be overall better for the industry, because not having input tax credit just makes things a lot more complicated, and the simplification of the tax which is there because there is input tax credit is much easier, and that's the sort of the spirit of GST, is to have a chain of taxes and not to break that chain at any point of time. So a rate reduction would definitely help. It would help booster the sentiments of the market, which is already improving at this stage.
Okay, Anuj, give us a sense of what's happening with the on-the-ground activity. I mean, yes, GST is an important aspect to address, but Are you getting a sense that the demand supply equation is balancing itself out, because we haven't quite seen prices come off?
So very good point. It is true. So I'll address just what Varun said earlier. Varun is looking at it from an NCR perspective. But, when you look at across India, I mean, certainly if you were to speak with any Mumbai developer, he'll say is that, 5% is what I want without an input credit, because the cost of land versus the cost of construction is very different in proportion to what it is in NCR. In terms of the pickup of the market, I completely agree and support what Varun is saying is that in the last 9 quarters, we have seen that the sales have been more than the new launches, which is fantastic because it's been 9 quarters, not 9 months. And every quarter, the sales has been more than the new launches. What it means is that the previous unsold inventory has started to sharply come down. And that's where we feel is that the market is coming out of its crisis. Not everybody, not every developer is going to come out of this. I think there will be consolidation, but clearly stronger developers, like Ashiana and others, will emerge as a winner who will be able to consolidate this market. But there is a silver lining given that the sales have been more than the new launches.
Yeah, indeed. Varun, what is your own sense? And, let's talk about liquidity, considering that has been another very important issue. What is it that you're sensing about liquidity situation on ground? Has it become slightly better post the recent NBFC crisis, or are things still as status quo, still the same?
Well, it seems to be that the liquidity situation is easing, but it's still challenging, is what I gather from the markets. And probably in the next couple of months, the liquidity situation should ease.
Okay. Just concluding remarks from both of you. Varun, if you're saying that the liquidity situation would ease, do you see a major change in the housing market into 2019? Things will only look better from here?
I would say so. Things only look better from here, primarily driven by what we were talking about earlier, that the supply-demand situation is changing towards reduction in supply and increasing demand, and that sort of change in equation will benefit prices going forward and also benefit the entire industry going forward.
Conclusion as well, better times ahead for real estate? Anuj?
Certainly, I think it is going to be better times. I think is also the general elections in 2019 will play a role. We've seen in the past that if there is stable, strong governments that have come into power, immediately the real estate market has gone up. So we're hoping that mid this year, when the general elections do come in, we have a stable, strong government, so that gives a further flip to the Indian real estate market.
Okay, gentlemen, great to have you on the show and get in some perspective. GST or not, seems like it's better times ahead for real estate. Varun, Anuj, both of you, thanks so much for joining in, and season's greetings and happy 2019 already.
Thank you.